Welcome to Beyond the Music, the podcast where we dive into the lives and stories of people who shaped the world of music. I am Karina.
And I'm Lena. We're both classically trained singers, and this podcast is our chance to explore the fascinating intersections of music, history, and humanity.
In our previous episode, we discussed Empire in Sound, the music of Ben-Hur, the Ten Commandments, and Cleopatra. Today, we will be exploring the history of Bayreuth.
Before we dive into the history, there's a very special reason why we chose Bayreuth as a topic. This year marks the 150th anniversary of the Bayreuth Festival. The very first festival opened in 1876, making this one of the most important anniversaries in the operatic world. And when you think about it, that's really remarkable. Very few artistic institutions survive for 150 years. Even fewer remain internationally relevant throughout the entire time.
And Bayreuth has survived through some of the most dramatic periods in modern history. It has existed through the German Empire, World War I, the Weimar Republic, World War II, the division of Germany, reunification, and now the 21st century. Musical tastes changed, politics changed, society changed, but every summer, thousands of people still travel to a relatively small Bavarian city to hear Wagner's operas.
And that's what makes Bayreuth such a perfect topic for a connections with the music episode. Because Bayreuth isn't just connected to Wagner, it's connected to architecture, politics, performance practice, conducting traditions, stage directing, and even audience culture. In many ways, Bayreuth tells the story of opera itself over the last century and a half.
To understand Bayreuth, we first have to understand Richard Wagner himself. And Wagner was not exactly known for thinking small. He wasn't simply interested in writing successful operas. He wanted to completely reinvent what opera could be.
Exactly. Wagner believed that music, poetry, drama, visual art, and stagecraft should all work together as one unified experience. He called this concept the Gesamtkunstwerk. That's a German term meaning total work of art. For Wagner, opera shouldn't be a collection of separate elements. Everything should serve one dramatic purpose.
The problem was that existing opera houses weren't designed for this vision. Most theaters of the 19th century were social spaces. If you can believe it, people talked. People ate. Shocking. People showed off their expensive clothes. Sometimes the audience paid more attention to each other than to the performance. And Wagner absolutely hated it.
So he decided to do something completely reasonable. He built his own opera house, or at least he tried to. The problem was that Wagner constantly struggled with money. He had enormous debts throughout much of his life. At one point, he even lived in exile after participating in the revolutionary movements of 1848. So the idea of building a completely new theater was, frankly, a little insane.
Yet somehow Wagner managed it. Construction of the Bayreuth Festspielhaus began in 1872, and Wagner was involved in almost every single detail. What's interesting is that the building doesn't look particularly glamorous from the outside, especially if you compare it to opera houses like Paris, Vienna, or Milan. It seems surprisingly simple.
Because Wagner wasn't interested in luxury. He was interested in acoustics and audience focus, and the innovations he introduced changed opera forever. The most famous example is the hidden orchestra pit. Wagner lowered the orchestra beneath the stage and partially covered it. He He called it the mystic abyss.
Today, that sounds normal, but at the time it was revolutionary. Audiences were used to seeing the orchestra. Suddenly, the music seemed to emerge mysteriously from beneath the stage. The focus shifted entirely to the drama.
Another innovation was the seating arrangement. There were no aristocratic boxes, no privileged viewing angles. Everyone faced the stage. Today, we take that for granted, but in the 19th century, it was a radical statement. Wagner wanted everyone focused on the artwork, not social status.
So next time, if you are traveling, look at how the theaters are built and you will definitely see the difference. Now, here's a fun fact. Bayreuth almost didn't happen. Wagner's financial situation was disastrous. Construction costs kept increasing and fundraising was not going well.
Thankfully for Wagner, he had a very powerful admirer, King Ludwig II of Bavaria.
Yay!
Ludwig was absolutely obsessed with Wagner's music. He provided enormous financial support and essentially rescued the project multiple times. Without Ludwig's help, the Festspielhaus might never have been completed.
Another fun fact, Ludwig II was also responsible for building Neuschwanstein Schloss, the most recognizable castle in Germany, which also stood as an inspiration for Disney's Cinderella Castle.
Exactly.
So going back, without Ludwig's help, the Festspielhaus may not have happened, which means one of the most important opera festivals in history may owe its existence to one extremely enthusiastic fan.
The first Bayreuth Festival opened in August 1876, and Wagner didn't choose a modest opening project. Instead, he presented the complete ring cycle.
Woo! For listeners who don't know, the ring consists of 4 operas: Das Rheingold, Die Walküre, Siegfried, and Götterdämmerung. Together, that's around 15 hours of music.
Imagine being an audience member at the first festival. Nothing like this had ever been attempted before. People traveled from all over Europe to witness it. Among the attendees were royals, critics, artists, and composers. Even Tchaikovsky attended. The festival instantly became an international sensation.
And very quickly, Bayreuth became more than just a festival. It became a pilgrimage. People traveled specifically to Bayreuth because they believed it was the authentic way to experience Wagner.
And that culture still exists today. Many opera lovers save money for years to attend. Some travel across continents. Others return every single summer. For some Wagner fans, Bayreuth is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. For others, it's almost a religious tradition.
And for our listeners who may not know, Lena and I actually met in Bayreuth.
Exactly.
Bayreuth besties.
Yes, that's how it is.
After Wagner died in 1883, the festival didn't disappear. Instead, his wife, Cosima Wagner, took over, and Cosima was an extraordinary administrator.
She was also the daughter of Franz Liszt, which means Bayreuth remained connected to some of the biggest musical figures of the 19th century. Cosima decided herself to preserving Wagner's vision, sometimes perhaps a little too much.
For decades, productions changed very little. Many audience members felt they were seeing Wagner's operas exactly as he intended. Others felt Bayreuth was becoming a museum, that debate between tradition and innovation still continues today.
Now, we need to address one of the most difficult chapters in Bayreuth's history. The festival became closely associated with the Nazi regime. Adolf Hitler was an enthusiastic admirer of Wagner's music and attended Bayreuth frequently.
Mm-hmm. Hitler actively developed a particularly close relationship with Winifred Wagner, one of Wagner's descendants. Because of this connection, Bayreuth unfortunately became symbolically linked to the regime.
This remains one of the most controversial aspects of the festival's history. It's impossible to discuss Bayreuth honestly without acknowledging it. And after World War II, the festival faced serious questions about how it could move forward.
Luckily, the answer came from Wagner's grandsons, Wieland and Wolfgang Wagner. After the war, they completely reimagined the festival.
Gone were the elaborated traditional sets, gone were many of the 19th century visual conventions. Instead, productions became minimalistic, abstract, and psychological.
Audiences were shocked. Some loved it. Some hated it. But New Bayreuth helped shape modern opera directing. Many of the production styles we see today can trace their roots back to these post-war experiments.
And then came one of the biggest scandals in Bayreuth history. In 1976, exactly 100 years after the first festival, French director Patrice Chéreau presented a new ring cycle.
Instead of presenting gods and heroes in a mythical world, Chéreau set the story during the Industrial Revolution. The gods looked like wealthy industrialists. The ring became a commentary on capitalism and exploitation.
Audiences booed loudly. Some viewers considered it a betrayal of Wagner, but over time, opinions changed. Today, that production is considered one of the greatest opera stagings of the 20th century.
Let's finish with a few fun facts. First, the seats in the Festspielhaus are famously uncomfortable.
Oh, yes.
Yes, I remember sitting in them.
My butt hurt.
But it's for a reason. Wagner wanted audiences paying attention to the opera, not relaxing.
Oh, well. The people are now also stealing the seating covers. Like, you get covers. Normally you should take one. There's some people taking 3 because it's so uncomfortable to sit in those chairs. So there's not enough left for the others. You have to be fast if you want a cover for the seat. Second, there's still no traditional air conditioning, which means spending 5 hours in Götterdämmerung during a hot summer can be quite the adventure. And since I was in the choir, they have air conditioning. It's not like, traditional. The whole building is mostly out of wood. So it's hard to build in a really good air conditioning. They have the air conditioning. They use it before the opera starts, but it's too loud because the acoustics are so good, because everything is out of wood. So it's too loud. They have to turn it off during the production, and they also cannot open the windows up to let the hot air out because they cannot close it anymore in the break because of the hot air making too much pressure, so the windows cannot close anymore. So if you ever go there, prepare. It's gonna be hot. Or you have luck and you have a summer in which there's not that nice weather, then it's okay. But it's really hot in there.
Prepare to bring with you a handheld fan, not an electrical one, a handheld. Or you can also think about it differently, that the heat or the lack of air conditioning is actually part of the experience of Götterdämmerung.
Exactly.
And the third fun fact, Bayreuth tickets used to be so difficult to obtain that people sometimes waited nearly a decade. A decade!
But what a lot of people don't know, if you go there just maybe for a vacation and you decide spontaneously to see if you can hear at least the opera in the house, there are listening seats. I think there are 10. They're behind wall or something. You cannot see the stage from them. So it's really a listening seat. You will hear everything perfectly, but you won't see anything. So they are quite cheap. I think they are 20 euros or something, or not more than 40, but I think they are really cheap. But you have to come, you have to Google that. I don't know it yet, but you have to come early to stand in line. And if the first 10 persons or whatever get the seat, and you can experience that. And that is something you don't have to wait decades for. You just have to plan and be early.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and finally, singers often describe their Bayreuth debut as one of the biggest milestones of their careers because of the hidden orchestra pit and unique acoustics. Performing there feels completely different from singing in most opera houses.
And for dramatic voices, it truly is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. When Wagner laid the foundation stone for the Festspielhaus in 1872, he hoped his vision would survive him. I don't think even he imagined people would still be discussing it 150 years later.
Bayreuth has been admired, criticized, celebrated, reinvented, and scandalized. But perhaps that's exactly why it has survived. It never remained frozen in time. Every generation has had to redefine what Bayreuth means.
Whether you see it as a monument to Wagner, a laboratory for innovative opera productions, or simply a fascinating piece of cultural history, its influence is impossible to deny.
And 150 years after the first festival, Bayreuth remains one of the most important places in the operatic world. A place where music history is not only remembered, but continues to be made.
I hope you enjoyed the history of Bayreuth as much as we did. If you like this episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review.
Next time, we'll dive into another fascinating chapter of music history. Until then, keep listening and discovering the stories beyond the music.
See you next time.